Welcome to the Parish the Thought Show. The opinions of Brian, your host, and his guests have not been sanitized or scientifically tested, so please consume at your own risk. Now, here's Brian.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else is listening, welcome back to the show. Today, my guests are the sisters, Emilie Call and Ashlie Sanders, hosts of That's Church podcast. Right? I get it right?
You got it.
Yep.
Okay. I love what you guys are doing, going out and visiting other faiths while still maintaining a foothold in your own. And I want to know what the kind of the genesis of this podcast and why you guys wanted to start doing this and some of the cool things you've discovered and what it's done to your own faith and membership and how that all looks. So ready, whoever wants to start.
Okay, I always answer that first question, so I'm going to let Ashlie this time. I told her next time we were asked this question, she's going to start because I want to know what she has to say.
Oh man, pressure. No, I can answer. Well, we've always had a fascination with other religions. I mean, I have talked and discovered this. Our grandparents my grandpa was Catholic and my grandma was LDS, and they were the best example of a relationship that was rooted in mutual respect. Like they never fought, at least none that we saw. We never saw any fighting about it. It just was like grandpa was Catholic and grandma was LDS. And our grandma had this saying, and it's kind of the mantra of our podcast, but she would always say, there's good in all religions. That's a Grandma Maxine quote. And so we always grew up hearing that. And Emmy and I have also talked about how we wanted to discover and learn more about other religions, but you kind of get in your own way. And I think there is still this kind of taboo feeling in the church as far as like researching other religions. And so we never really did until recently. And it has been an incredible journey. We actually, when we were talking about making this podcast, we went on a trip to San Diego, and the girls we were with didn't want to come with us. They wanted to go to the beach, but me and Emmy went to a Spanish mission, a Catholic Spanish mission. And there was this moment in the cathedral or in the mission where we just looked back at each other and we both started crying, and it was like the confirmation we needed that like we need to make this podcast. And so yeah, we've visited many different, our first season is mostly based in Utah, and we visited a synagogue, the Krishna temple, the Center of Islam. We've talked to so many different people, including a rabbi, and then also just members within the congregations. And it has been so eye-opening. And yeah, that's basically it. If there's anything else you want to add, Emmy.
Yeah, our first season unintentionally became all leaders of churches, and it was really interesting. We actually intended to interview more members, but it was leaders that were kind of like, yeah, I'll do it. They kind of wanted to represent their church, obviously, which makes sense. But then this second season, we've really focused on some more non-traditional religions and spiritualities and beliefs and faith systems, which is super interesting. And we both really love getting to know people and just like really getting to their heart and knowing who they are at their core. And it's been so fascinating and so fun to really reach outside of ourselves and learn things that I think we used to think were scary, like it used to be so taboo. I mean, I think it is still taboo to learn about other religions and like talking to an atheist, like, ooh, like I think it's so odd that was taboo. And really they're just people, that are also trying to figure out this life and what it is that they believe. And we've really enjoyed getting to know them. Before we started this, I was asked to do what's it called? To do a fireside. I was asked to speak at a fireside during a oh my gosh, where are my words? Do you edit quite a bit or No.
Nope.
Is this just straight? Okay.
Nope. It's okay. It's real.
At a retreat.
Yeah.
Anyway, I spoke a little bit at a retreat, and for the retreat, I asked a bunch of people that I know, what their beliefs and their relationship to Jesus Christ is. And it was like all of my really close friends and all of my really close family members that I know very well, and I have great relationships with them. But this was something I've never asked them before. I mean, I never had any reason to. And it was so amazing to really see the depth of their souls in that, in a really different way. And that was something that kind of sparked this too. I was like, I want to do this more. I want to know people on this next level, and on a spiritual level, but also on just like another level, even if they're not spiritual, just like who they are down deep. So that really kind of was a huge part of it for me as well. And yeah, we've loved it. It's been absolutely incredible to add their light to our own light, and to learn from them and realize that I think within all of this, we've really realized some of our mistakes. And also we have just added so much to our lives as well.
Your mistakes personally or as a church?
Both.
Or both?
I think both. Yeah. Yeah. You asked also what we've gained from it. And, for me, I think I used to say in the beginning, I said, I think I have gained, my spirituality has grown, and within my own church as well, and my own belief system. But I really looked at that. I said that a few times, and then I was like, wait, is that true? I think actually it made me see some things in the church that I don't like, but it also made me see some things in our church that I do like. And within other religions, there are things that I loved and things that I didn't love as well. And I think it just made me reflect on my own connection to a higher power and what that actually looks like, and not just because that was what I was told to believe throughout my entire childhood or, young adulthood. But like, what do I actually believe, And there's so much good in other churches, and there's so much truth, dare I say.
Dare you say.
Dare I say.
Yeah.
Weird.
It
It can
really
be
is.
in two different places. What
Yeah.
a strange concept.
Mhm.
Yep. We had Patrick Mason on our podcast, and he said something that I think about so often. He said, I just don't believe in a stingy God. And I thought, that's it. Like, why are we trying to proclaim that we have all of the answers, and instead of embracing the fact that maybe God gave answers to everyone in different ways.
And
Mhm.
yeah, because this what I've noticed being in the Mormon, I'm saying it, I'm using the word, I'm not using the big long title because it's silly.
Mm-hmm.
Is there's a tendency to think we're better than other people, and I experienced that when I moved here, not being in the club in '87.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of people that trying to fix me and change me because they didn't like the way I was. And that rattled me hard. And the things that spoke, the people that spoke volumes to me were the ones who said very little. They just loved me for who I was. Kind of like, well, the second commandment, love your neighbor. What a concept that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're comfortable with where we're at, if we're not afraid to look at other sources and opinions, political, religious, otherwise, it's been fascinating since I came from the far right and politically, and wanting to learn about people that I knew on the surface wouldn't get along with. And I actually seek those people out now because I want to know. And I'm not trying to make a hard sell. Just want to understand. Tell me how you come to whatever conclusion you have for no other reason than just to learn about them. It's amazing the walls that will break down in your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
yeah. And if we did that as a faith, as a people, politics, because I mean, well, don't even talk to the other side, because then you're giving into your values, or giving up your values if you engage with the enemy. There's a lot of the rhetoric that goes around. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is about you, not me.
No, it's so fascinating, and I'm so glad that you said that, because it brought something to mind that that was interesting in this whole journey / experiment that we were on. Is that I had assumed that going to other services and visiting other religious communities, that they were going to try to convert us, and it was not the case. And they, if anything, they loved us where we were at, which is something I think we, as many Mormons, try to proclaim, but I wonder how many are actually doing it. I think it's, I don't want to blanket statement all Mormons, but I do think that there is this mentality of like, it's either pity, like, oh, if only they had what we had, or just flat out ignorance, like shame on them for practicing that religion. And neither of those are the answer. We just really need to love people where they're at. And that, not that this should be the objective, but that is the greatest conversion tool. Like I want to go back to the Krishna temple. I want to go back to the synagogue, because nobody was forcing me to be there. Nobody was pressuring me to be there. It just felt love, it felt like love. And there was this time where we went to the Krishna temple and went through the service, which was beautiful and very unique. I highly recommend people to do it. It's in Spanish Fork, Utah. It's the gorgeous building. You can't miss it. But after, the thing that stuck out to me is they serve a meal after, and everyone can partake. And people will come even after the service that didn't go to the service and will just eat. Like, they're so generous. And I just remember sitting around a table with people who were so different than me. Like you mentioned, when you said now you seek people out that are different than you, that hits hard, because it's easy to love someone who's like us. It's harder to love someone who's different. And these people were people I might not have, been drawn to originally, but they were so kind. And I just remember sitting at this table eating rice and mango juice, and there was a parrot walking around on the table. And I just remember feeling like, and I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional, but I just remember feeling like, oh, this is Jesus. Like, this is what Jesus would be doing, is just sharing meals with people. It wasn't even part of the service, like the service was over, but just the feeling of connection and being with other people and learning from other people was something that I will really cherish.
Mm-hmm.
You remember in the Grinch, I use this analogy a lot, because it's how I've explained how I feel now since I've opened up and wanted to learn about other people. Is at the end, when he's like, when his heart grows 2 sizes too big, and then he's like, I'm leaking, because he was crying. He was so happy. That's how it feels when you genuinely take an interest in somebody for just a pure reason of just knowing them. And it's so, because like I was grumpy for 20 years. Literally, I consumed everything one side only. And that was my whole paradigm. And when you have that, you suspect the other side, and we start sidesing people and all those people. And I even started doing that with the church. And like, I joined in 95. I had nothing. I was raised with no other faith, so I didn't have anything pushing against or fighting against, and it's all I've known. Mm-hmm. And we don't have a monopoly on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And years ago, I was called as a elders quorum president, probably 7-8 years ago. And this is when I started really thinking differently. And the home teaching, reports for those not of our faith, you're assigned a family to go visit and look out for, and just basically an assigned friendship, which is good and bad, because it gets you into uncomfortable places where you meet somebody you maybe otherwise wouldn't on your own. But these guys, every month, they're like, they're even their reports, because we had to report back every month about how our families were doing. And they're like, well, I didn't get in the home. I didn't give the lesson. And I would tell them, I don't care about any lesson. I don't care about all I want to know is, do you know something different this month than you knew last month from that family? Do you love that family? Are you just going for that reason?
Yeah.
And it was really hard for people to shake that mindset of, well, I got to check this off my list,
Right.
and just love them. And it simplified home teaching if you did it that way. Missionary work, sales, all of it. If you try to just understand and love people, then it's genuine, and they don't feel like where's that high pressure sale coming? Even like missionaries that I hear, these missionaries that go out and they have these rules and quotas and goals of numbers and to hit, and they get so hyper focused on that, we lose the genuine connection. You mentioned connection. You don't have that connection. It's a sale. It's a transaction.
Right. It's so true. And people can smell the BS mile away, like
Amen.
You can tell when someone is being genuine. And I've actually had to break down the wall of assuming people are not genuine. And I hate that I've become that way, but it's because I have had some disingenuous experiences. And so I have to tell myself, like, no, like, innocent until proven guilty. Like, if they're reaching out to me at church, I'm going to take it for what it is until I know otherwise. And it's interesting how you can start on one side of that, and now I'm the opposite. I have to be like, no, they have good intentions until I know otherwise. But it's because, like you said, there is a lot of that in our church. A lot of you nailed it with the checklist. Yeah.
Yeah. We are the worst at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this quote by Billy Chapita, I think that's his name, that says, love that doesn't try to change you changes you. And I even hesitate saying that, because then I think, well, then are you still expecting a change? But I think truly, like, no expectations. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, zooming out and really seeing a person for who they are and wanting to know them without expectation for anything, whether it's religious or political or salesman-y or, but just really getting to know somebody who they are with zero expectation, I think is so important. And we've really been able to do that on this journey. And it's such a beautiful journey. You mentioned, Ashlie, that God talks to different people in different ways. And I think that's also like different time periods. Like the LDS church has only been around since 1820, so 1830, I guess. But God was still talking to people, he, she, they were still talking to people. They're still guiding people. They're still blessing people. And also we talk about scripture. There are scriptures within our scriptures that talk about additional scriptures coming forth. Well, who's to say that those aren't the scriptures that already exist? The Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, they all have great wisdom within them,
Well, didn't one of our great leaders in the past say, out of the very best books, seek wisdom? Isn't that recent? I think it was Hinckley.
Yeah.
Wow.
Somebody, I don't know. Somebody said that.
Huge. Mm-hmm.
Because,
totally.
It's freeing. It's freeing. You should do tours. Do you take, these people do these like these Costa Rica tours, these Book of Mormon tours. You should do church tours and take people with you. Do you do that?
That would be a dream. Maybe when my kids are fully in school. Ooh, that would be a dream.
It would be. We've had people come with us occasionally, but it would be fun to set something up. We actually, so this season is more traditional and non-traditional religions that we're focusing on. But, and a lot of LDS people, we're interviewing a lot of LDS people that just are like-minded and believe in looking at different religions. And so we're just kind of getting their take on it, which has been really fun as well. But for our next season, we're hoping to, and who knows what life will bring, but our plan is to just visit Christian churches in Utah so that people can know the different Christian churches and what there is, because there are so many people that are leaving the LDS church, but are still Christian and still want a Christian place to land, a Christian home, And so we kind of want to do that research for them And we also are really intrigued by all of the different religions. We went on a cruise recently with our entire family, and I talked to a girl just randomly. She was so nice and friendly. She was on this cruise all by herself, and she started talking to me, and she said, "Are you Mormon?" And I said, "Well, a lot of us are." And in the group, some of us are, some of us aren't. She goes, "But are you?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I can tell." I'm like, "Oh, how?"
Oh, it's
Trying to kind of disguise it, but there's just something. Anyway, but she was, I can't even remember what she was. Do you remember, Ash, what religion she was?
Oh my gosh. Amish? No, not Amish. It's on the tip of my tongue.
It was a Christian church that I really didn't know very much about. And I just did a recording with her. We need to put that out. We haven't put that out yet as a bonus episode, but I just said, "Can I record you?" Because it was fascinating. And she asked me, and my husband was there. She asked us a bunch of questions, and it was so intriguing, and I didn't know anything about it. And it was just another Christian church. And so that kind of prompted the idea, like, let's go to Christian churches and talk to Christian people of different denominations and ask similar questions, just so we can see the differences, because there are a lot of differences and there's a lot of similarities as well. And yeah, I think that'll be an interesting one. And there's a lot of people that ask who are LGBTQ allies and who are focused more on Christ and things like that. So we want to kind of gather that data and information for people so that they know and can feel safe in going, wherever they decide to go. So.
All right. Well, I have to ask, when she said, "I knew you were Mormon," what was it that tipped her off?
I asked her, and I was like in a bathing suit, like a normal, not very modest bathing suit. Like, I don't know. And she just said, "I can just tell you have like a light about you." And I was like, "Oh, well, I like that better." Yeah. That's great. I like that better wearing. Than your clothing or, the way that I don't know. So I liked that.
I usually get the opposite. People are like, "You're LDS?" Just because I've got tattoos and things. And I'm like, I don't know. I rather trick people, I guess.
Well, and that, like you say, I probably should have said this at the onset of the show, but your Instagram name is the Nuanced Mormon, right?
Correct.
And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's so,
thank you so much.
I'm like, I want to steal that title, but I'll just keep mine.
A friend of mine said, I think I'm a radical Mormon, which I think is just a normal person. And he laughed and he said, he's like, "No, you're nuanced. You're a nuanced Mormon." And I was like, bingo.
There it is.
So thanks, Brian Clark. Thanks for the name. Shout out.
Yeah. No, that's,
yeah.
I think, Ashlie, you mentioned at one point in a recent episode that you were getting a little bit of pushback from some of your fellow ward members for doing what you guys are doing. Did I hear that correctly? Or have you both experienced that?
We have a little bit. It's interesting that we've kind of experienced it from both sides, which is surprising. I will say, 99% of the time people are supportive and are really excited to hear where we go and hear the stories. But there is an interesting silence that comes about when I talk about it to certain ward members, or not, I wouldn't even say ward members, just certain, people in my life that happen to be LDS. There's a silence that happens, and I just think, "Oh, you don't agree with what we're doing here." and that's okay. Everyone is at their own place, and some people are not ready to, to hear these kinds of things. But in my mind, it kind of baffles me, just because there's no negativity that can come from it in my mind. Like, just learning about others. And I think the greatest, I was thinking the other day about my own spirituality and like what my mantra is, or like my number one foundation. And I think like the words "put yourself in other people's shoes" came to mind. Like, I really think that is what I'm trying to do now. I'm not great at it, and there's always room for improvement, but I think putting myself in other people's shoes, whether they be Muslim or Jewish or unhoused or in prison. There are so many things we can learn from other people. So I'm kind of sad for those people that aren't able to open their mind up and learn from others, but give them time, they might come around.
Yeah. The scriptures endorse what you're doing.
Oh, that's nice of you to say.
Because they do.
I hope.
And then you mentioned that silence, that I call it the judgy silence.
Yeah. It's so true.
Okay. All right. How's that? Yeah.
They have to be polite still and nice, but
yeah,
you know what they're thinking.
Because what you're doing is what Christ said to do. Love your neighbor. And I swear that's the essence of the gospel for me. It doesn't get any more complicated than that, nor should it. And it has in my life. And I think I heard a voice, I think it was probably Jesus, said, hey, because when I joined, I was a little overzealous. I was excited. I wanted everyone to know what I had experienced. And I had this magical Sacred Grove moment. I'm dissecting that now, what that really was.
Wow.
But I was like, why can't you get this? This is amazing. Come on. Just get it. And I heard a voice that said, shut up and love people.
Wow.
Period. And that's it. And that's all I needed, I think. And am I doing it right? No, but it's exciting to learn and grow. And it's like, oh, who else? Because everyone here in Utah, we're kind of the same. It's sort of homogenized, right? It's hard to find those who look like, act like, talk like, think like, vote like, whatever like you, or hard that aren't like you, right? As you guys you've grown up here, so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
And my daughter lives in Brooklyn, and to go to Brooklyn and everybody's different. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have my podcast on the streets here and just talk to anybody that walks by. Because everybody's different and has a story, and it would be great. Incredible. Anyway.
That's so cool. Yeah. I'm really jealous that she lives in Brooklyn.
Yeah, she's been 3 years there, and she's about to move to Chicago. She's burnt out with the city. The city used her up.
Oh, no.
She's going to go try it in Chicago where it's cheaper.
Nice. Well, Chicago's amazing too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So pushback, you've been getting a little. Tell me one of the most unique thing, or what's the most interesting thing that you have learned by doing this about yourself? And maybe you mentioned it, but I didn't ask the specific question. So ready, go.
Go ahead, Em.
Oh, I feel like I answered it. No.
You may have, but it probably wasn't couched in that question. So
yeah, no. The thing I learned most about myself, I don't know. Ash, do you know? I gotta think for a minute.
I think that the biggest thing I have learned is that, and I think Emmy did mention this, that we are all more alike than we think. And that's not to say that I think that we should be alike, because I think the beauty is in the differences. And I heard this this quote that, we talk about unity, but we can't mistake unity for uniformity. We don't want uniformity. We don't want to all be little matching robot people. And so the way that I view my spirituality, especially after going through all of these churches, is like a mosaic, like all of these different tile pieces that I've sort of puzzled together and wedged into different places, like I'll say Hare Krishna sometimes, and that's my quick way of praying to God, because that's how they pray to God, with their prayer beads. Or I wear this, this St. Christopher necklace because it reminds me of my grandpa, because he was Catholic. And so I do think there's just beauty. And I will say this one more thing. I feel like I've talked so much, sorry, but I will say one more thing. We recently moved to Sugar House. We're closer to the city now. And I think that inevitably comes with more diversity, which I love. And there is a large community of Islam where I live. And so they have the hijabs, and the women are very modest and covered. And I have so much more love for them. Man, why am I so emotional? Sorry. I think I'm ashamed to say that in my previous life, or maybe a few years ago even, I would have looked at that and thought, that's so weird. Why do you do that? And once you go and you learn about it, you realize like those are their garments. You know, it's no different than what we do in the LDS church. And I personally don't wear garments, you know, just that's my own choice. But I have so much more respect and love for these people who I really knew nothing about. And I think back on my previous self and I feel bad for that girl. I just think like, if only you knew then. And I'm glad I know now. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is like just the knowledge we've gained.
Well, and don't beat that old little girl up either, because that little girl was programmed and conditioned and groomed to think a certain way because of the culture.
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
thank you for saying that.
When you know more, you do more, do better. What's the word? There's that phrase when you know what I'm talking about? I always
do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better.
Yes.
Maya Angelou. Yes. I love that quote.
And that's what you're doing. So don't beat the old person up too much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Brian. That means a lot. Thank you for saying that.
Well, I mean it for reals.
I think also just to add to what I've already said, I think I've really tried to learn how to connect with God, and I have learned it in so many different ways. I think in the LDS church, there's one way you connect with God. You pray like this. And we have loved learning how different people pray. That has been so beautiful to us. And we were talking to somebody recently about gratitude. And I think through prayer, we express gratitude, and gratitude is so healing for us. And so I think there's so many things that we've learned in different traditions and different ways of thinking and different, what's it called? Ash, I can never think of this word. Rituals. Thank you. I knew you know what I was talking about. Yeah.
That's why I have both of you here, so I get a complete story.
Yeah, exactly.
Different rituals. There's so much that we have learned in experiencing all of those things. And I think you can gain so much power and so much, you can just gain so much of everything through just experiencing things through other people's eyes. And I think my quest in all of this has been to figure out who God is and how to connect with them as well. But I think ultimately God has to be love. That's the thing that I know for sure, is that God has to be love. And when we love people, we can access a power that is greater than us. And I've seen it through every single religion. I do believe in Jesus. I see the connections in all of the different religions as well, and they all go back to the same place. Like I went to Nepal, and it was so eye-opening to us. My husband and I went to Nepal a few years ago, and it was so eye-opening to us, all of the similarities in the Buddhist and the Hinduism cultures and religions. And it was the first time that our eyes were really opened and our hearts were really open to receiving something that was different. And we were like, oh my gosh, look at all these things that are similar. Like, look at all these things that connect, like they have similar symbols on, that like we do inside of our temples, and they have similar rituals and similar traditions and just things that I thought they were so different, and they're not even Christian. And yet, like, we're all so similar, and it all goes back to the same place. We just went to a fireside of about Heavenly Mother, and it was beautiful. And we met this great girl there that talked to us about scripture, and she's a scriptorian, and she gets into deep doctrine, and she's LDS, but we talked to her about what we do, and she explained how all of these religions are connected through scripture and through history, and how it really is just God, or a higher power, whatever it is that you believe in, it just is all connected. And it's so beautiful, and we can connect with each other if we just listen.
Therein lies the crux of the situation, right? Listening, truly
Mhm.
listening, just for the sake of listening.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
well, hey, what haven't I asked you guys about what you're doing that you want to share, or what haven't we touched on that you want to, for my 12 listeners
yeah.
worldwide to walk
Oh
away with?
yeah. Whatever. There's more.
Do you want to
Don't be
share a
so
couple
modest.
more funny stories, Ash?
We can share funny stories. I was also just going to mention that we're just really excited about this our upcoming season because last season we mentioned we did mostly religious leaders, so it's very informative, and this season we've done a mix of LDS members and then non-traditional religions. So it's been fascinating. So we have a pagan witch who comes on. We have an atheist. We have energy work, spirituality. We have a friend of ours who just believes in her own feminine power. So it is like, it speaks more to my spirit just because it fascinates me, and I'm all about individual spirituality, whether you're in a religious organization or not. I think our spirituality should all be individual. So yeah, that's something that we're very excited about. But yeah, share some funny stories. Emmy has a good funny story where she blessed herself twice.
I have a couple. Yeah.
It's mostly Emmy.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's both.
I went to this was without you, actually. We generally visit churches together, but this one was actually before we started the podcast. And my husband and I went with a friend for Christmas. I think it was Christmas Eve. We went to the Catholic church, and he was like, "Yeah, you can go up." I said, "I always like to take sacrament or do whatever it is that they do, all the rituals, all the everything." Anyway, and for this, he said, "Go up and you can be blessed by the priest." So there was a priest, and then there was a deacon, and the priest was a man, the deacon was a woman. Anyway, so I went up to the priest and he blessed me. And then there was the deacon was standing right next to him. So I was like, "Oh, I guess we get blessed again." So I went over to her, she blessed me. And then I went back and our friend was like, "Did you just get blessed twice?" I was like, "Well, yeah, they're both standing right there. Why not?" And he's
like,
"Yeah,
a
you're only
twofer.
supposed to do it once."
Right. She needed the double blessings. Let's be honest here.
Yeah,
Why not?
I felt like it was necessary. Yeah.
Did you have to give one back?
Yes,
I should have asked. No, I kept it. I
kept
wouldn't
it.
have.
They were shocked though. They were like,
you have a surplus,
"I've never
you can
seen
give out
anyone
to
do it."
someone else. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Well, that's
But
fascinating.
you know what? People don't care.
No.
We make mistakes. We made a huge mistake at the Islamic Center, and we got a few weird looks, but ultimately, they know that we're amateurs and we're visiting, and so
You find
go ahead.
Do you find that people of these other that they are appreciative of you wanting to come in and learn?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And they
for
don't
sure.
They don't sick their people on you. Like, "There's Mormon in the house. We know they're Mormon. Get them."
No.
I think they do know we're LDS. I don't know what we're putting off, but they are all so kind, and you can tell that it means a lot to them that we're there. And so I highly recommend people going, and take a friend, because it can be intimidating going alone. So that's my advice, is just take a friend, and you will, we've never, even with the mistakes we've made, everyone's been so kind and so gracious to us.
Which
Yeah.
is good. And we probably all should be a little more like that. And we talk about our congregations and how we wish they would smell of smoke more. Right? You probably heard that before, right?
I don't
You
think
guys
so.
never heard that? I
Mm-mm.
heard somebody say, "Yeah, we are," because everyone looks the same, dresses the same. Everyone seems, but it'd be great to have someone in shorts. And I went to temple prep class, the first one for my son last night, and I went in my shorts, and it was church dress. I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter, because they had invited the parents as well. And my family about crucified me. Even my son said, "Dad, it's church dress. And you're going in your shorts? Are you going golfing afterwards?" I said, "It doesn't matter. God does not care what you wear.
Yeah.
Your Sunday best." I'm like, "Well, this is my Sunday. It's not best, but it's what I want to wear."
Yeah.
So hyper focused on the stupid things. Anyway,
It's
again,
so
that's another podcast.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. Everything is more inward than it is outward. That's at least how I feel. So, yeah. And I love it. I love when I see people come to church in flip-flops, and it doesn't happen very often, but
No, not here. It doesn't.
I'm like, go for it.
Someone said years ago, "Oh, it's an outward sign of an inward commitment." No, it isn't. Because I had this, this joke of, the stages of inactivity. It's like first you went from a long sleeve white shirt and a tie to a short sleeve white shirt and a tie. Then you take the tie off, then it's a colored shirt, and then you're in a polo. So I'm about ready. This is what I wore, what I'm wearing here.
Nice.
So I'm about
you
ready.
got a collar?
I'm about out. I'm almost out the door based on
next
what I'm
time
wearing.
Tank top.
The wife beater.
Yep. Yep.
That's a horrible phrase that is, but anyway.
I'm reading this book. True. I just wanted to mention, because you mentioned it's all inward, and I'm reading this book called The Inner Work. It is so good. It's I think it's the inner work of relationships, but I thought it was just the inner work. Anyway, it's amazing, and it involves a lot of different religions. So they pull from all different people and all different religions, and it's about like meditating, and there's a lot of Buddhism, and it's really beautiful because it does really focus on inward first before outward. So I recommend it.
I want to read that. Who's
I
it by?
I just saw that book looked really thick.
It does.
It's true.
I'm doing that. My husband's reading it and I'm doing the audio. So I have it on Audible, but it's by Matt and Ash. I don't know their last names, but I follow them on Instagram, and they're incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's okay. Matthew Micheletti and Ashlie Cottrell.
Awesome.
The Inner Work.
Link it.
Or the Yoga Couple. I think that's their name on Instagram. The Yoga Couple.
Okay.
That's awesome.
It's worth it.
I ask you, Brian, what have you gained from doing your podcast? What has it brought you in your life, and how long have you been doing it?
About 6 years, and I started it. There was a show called The Story Trek on BYU TV for years. Did you ever see that? This guy, he was a reporter from Fox News 15 years ago. His name is Todd Hansen. And he would take his camera, go around to random towns, knock on the door and say, "Tell me your story." It was that random. And everyone would push back and say, "Who am I? I've got nothing. Nobody wants to hear me. I'm nobody." And he'd push him a little, and everyone has a story. So every house has a story. Everybody's got something that somebody can learn from. And I'm like, that's fascinating to me. So I don't just randomly go to knock on someone's door, but I don't have a topic. People always ask me what my topic or my niche, whatever is. I don't have one. It's humans. It's just whoever people. I decide. Like when I saw your show, I'm like, that's awesome. I love what they're doing. And so I want to know about it and share it and spread it. So that's, and trying to find people who on the surface I may not agree with, or politically, or even the whole having my daughter tell her coming out story. And I do a little series, or I started a little series for LDS parents of gay kids, because I met a kid who came out to his parents a year ago, and it's just killing him. And my parent and my Stake Relief Society president, she has a queer daughter. So she came on the second episode and talked about how she did it wrong and how she changed and learned. And so I'm just trying to, there's mistakes I've made. Hopefully other people won't make them. And so that's just growing, learning. I'm like, oh, that's a cool story. I want to know about that. A lady in my ward wrote a little 7-page book on dragons. Like, that's interesting. I'll have her on. It was just one of the shortest interviews ever, but I'm like, tell me about your story about why you wrote a book about dragons.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So I found years ago, my brother was talking about barbecuing meat and smoking meat, and I couldn't give two craps about smoking meat. And he's telling me about it like I care. And so I'm like, okay, this is driving me crazy. I don't want to hear this. But I thought, okay, find out what's interesting about this for him. Be interested in him, in this story. And I just said, what is it about meat and smoking meat that is so exciting for you, brother? And then he told me, and it actually became interesting because I asked that question. Because before I'm like, I'm ready to blow my brains out. I don't care. I like meat. But then it
Wow.
opens up your mind when you
It
like,
does.
be interested. Then you'll
Yeah.
be interesting kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it
Ugh.
shows the care. I mean,
Mhm.
it sounds like you are a very caring person, because and I've always said this, that we share our testimonies, and yet we're not willing to hear other people's testimonies. And I think that, there's nothing that connects you more than being vulnerable with someone else, and their testimony might look totally different than yours. And, if you want that respect, you have to give that respect.
Agreed.
So I really admire your endeavor here. And I'm excited. I've listened to some of your podcasts. I'm excited to listen to more, because I can tell you're just fascinated by humans. And
Trying to
that's
be, because
fascinating
it makes
to me
life
as
more
well.
interesting, because mine's pretty dull. So I'm trying to make it interesting.
You don't come off that way. You don't come off as dull.
Well, thank you.
No.
Well, I appreciate you two coming on. In the last couple of minutes here, how do people find you? And do you have your other social media avenues? And I'll put them all in the show notes, but what are they? How can people
Awesome.
find you guys? They want to follow what you're doing.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes.
Em.
So they can find us at That's Church Podcast on Instagram, and Ashley's The Nuanced Mormon on Instagram. And then our podcast itself is just called That's Church.
On Spotify as well.
It's Spotify, Apple, yeah.
All the
Any
usual
podcast,
places.
any
Yeah.
podcast that you listen to.
I love what you guys are doing
on all of it.
and You're doing some cool things and opening people's minds and hearts. And I hope, this is good. Nothing but good can come from this. I think.
Oh, thank you so much.
See,
That's
Emily,
seriously
I have
means
problems
so
with the
much.
English language too.
Hey,
my
we're showing that
problem
we're
is-
real,
Like, I hope you edit.
A little bit.
All right.
Not
It's
a
all
lot,
right.
but anyway.
We're real. We're real
We edit
people.
ourselves a lot. That's how much we mess up. So
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna end this here, and then I want to chat some more after I stop the recording here. So
Okay.
is that good?
Awesome. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thanks
Okay,
so
ladies.
much.
Thank you again for listening to The Parish the Thought Show. We know you have many podcast options and appreciate that you have chosen us. If you love what you hear, please give us a rating on whatever platform you find us. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. If you hate what you hear, only tell us. You're still here? Click on the next episode for more from The Parish the Thought Show.